John Harvey is the founder of the U.S. Crime Center, and he's an experienced guy when it comes to data and when it comes to law enforcement. He's also the creator of the app Bloodhound, which we're going to talk about in a bit. John, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate you staying up late.
Oh, great. Good to be here.
John, for people that are unaware, what is the National Crime Center, the U.S. Crime Center?
Well, it's actually uscrimecenters.com, and it's a startup company my brother and I both have put together. We both combined have about 75 years of law enforcement experience. We come from a cop family, and we've done quite a bit in terms of data and also addressing crime problems.
So you've spent, you yourself, over 40 years developing law enforcement technology. How'd you get into this field?
I come from a cop family. My dad, several uncles, cousins, and ultimately me and my two brothers. Now we have nephews and whatnot. All are cops. It's kind of like Blue Bloods, I guess.
I love it.
And so I really never had a chance. I was just cast into it and got into the computer field because I had a side business doing construction, and I needed a computer to keep track of everything. And then we had a sheriff come in who, because I had a computer, I became the department guru. And at that time, I was majoring in psychology, and I got so interested that I changed my major. And long story short, I wound up writing a lot of programs for the sheriff's office there, set up all of their computers in the networks, and Microsoft did a case study on one of my warrant tracking programs. Then I retired and went to work for the Memphis Police Department and helped build out the internationally acclaimed award-winning real-time crime center of the MPD. In 2009, we won the Excellence in Law Enforcement Award over NYPD and LAPD, and cut crime by 34% over a 4-year period. They rewarded us by taking 6% of our pay away from us, so I moved to Ogden, Utah the next year, where I became the Deputy Director of Administration, and I set up their real-time crime center as well.
You've been called one of America's foremost data geeks. What does that mean in the context of crime fighting? How has technology helped law enforcement?
After we won that award, the Washington Post sent a reporter down to do a ride-along with me and also review other officers there to see what we were doing that was so different. And she was not and is not just a normal reporter. It's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter by the name of Dana Priest. And we sufficiently impressed her with what we had in the works that that's when she decided to call me that. And she said that was a compliment, by the way. And
I think so, absolutely.
She sent me an autographed book, and that was nice.
No doubt about it.
Funny, we took her out in the streets, and the second night that she was out with us, we wound up making a stop based on a license plate reader hit that we got, and my software was the reason that we made the stop. It turns out that it was the mayor's son. So he got to go to jail, and I had to stay up all night.
Oh, gee. Yeah. What an impression to make.
That may have had something to do with her, being impressed.
Yeah, I would say so.
Later, I understand that, I did a little research on you to see who I was talking to.
Oh, boy. Kind
of like what you were talking about. Somebody had been researching you. All you got to do is find an AI engine. It could be ChatGPT. It could be Perplexity or Claude or whatever engine you want. Just ask it a question like you're talking to somebody, and it'll come back and you can debate back and forth.
But you know what's funny about that?
I've noticed.
I don't mean to interrupt, John, but what's funny about that is I've asked ChatGPT stuff about me, and it gets a lot of stuff wrong. It says, I was born in a different place. It says, I'm a different age than I am. It says I have a different number of children than I do. I wonder how accurate that is.
Well, you have to question it, and what I usually do is ask 2 or 3 engines the same question and see what, try to merge those. But what I have found is that when I ask questions, it usually gives me a liberal answer, and I wind up getting in debates and saying, are you lying to me? And it will actually say, I'm sorry, I apologize, and then tell me something totally different. So you have to be careful when you do that. The other thing I was going to mention is my Bloodhound software is totally different than anything I've ever seen before, but it comes from my 40 years of working in the field and using data. I actually hold the record for the most arrests on an 8-hour shift in the warrant squad of the sheriff's office, but it was because I got data from the local utility company, and I made sure they put Social Security number in that data. And some of the guys that were resisting the change to my new system said they could do just as well, the way they worked. And I knew they were going to have other officers feeding them, but I was confident in my program. So we went out one night. I had already worked 8 hours with my partner in the planning bureau, and we went down and drew a car. And so it was 2 officers with their car and a paddy wagon, and then my partner and I in a paddy wagon. At the end of 8 hours, those guys had 10 arrests, which for them was off the charts. But 10 will never be 25. Nobody's ever come close to that. And I simply did it to demonstrate that you can work smart, you can work hard, and you can combine them and have results like that. And so I have a history of having that kind of results.
Well, I want to come back to the Bloodhound app in just a second, get you to explain a little bit of what that is. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. My guest is John Harvey. He's the creator of the app, Bloodhound. Law enforcement technology has come a long way in the past few decades. What do you think the biggest change you've seen has been, and where do you think we're headed next?
Computers has been the biggest change. We're headed next to a different level of computers and more artificial intelligence. It's kind of a natural flow.
There's also a great deal of prevalence, as you're aware, I'm sure, of cyber scams. I feel like every day I'm reading about a different hacking scandal, a different phishing scandal, where the criminals are also using more and more advanced technology to fool people, in some cases even mimicking someone's voice, making all sorts of calls to, especially the elderly. They're so victimized with this rapidly, and then as soon as somebody gets on the phone, they have a computer, talk to them in maybe one of these grandparent scams. How bad is it, these cyber scam situations, and what can we do about it?
The best you can do is educate yourself, and I do as much as I can. I read every day, almost all day, and I took white hat security classes. Both of the courses were week long, and I took them twice at New Horizons Training Center. And after the first week, the first time I took the course, I just shook my head. I thought, there's no way to win. Well, after the second go around, a few years later, you can turn your computer off, and some of these alphabet agencies can get your data anyway. When I saw that you could run a network over electricity, the entire country is a network. The FBI and the CIA and guys like that, they can aim a laser at your window and make that whole thing a sounding board and hear everything you do. And they can get RF off of your computer when you turn it off and still read your screen. So you can turn the computer off and dismantle it, and they can still get data.
Well, that's disconcerting. So now that people are listening, what can consumers do about this? You say the solution's better education. What should people do to protect
educate
themselves?
yourself, and you can use AI to ask it those same questions. And I recommend that, and ask several engines, because things change so rapidly. The AI engines will be updated before you ever hear about it. So that's a good use of AI technology.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with AI. It seems like, I mean, I guess you could say this of every technology, but it seems to cut both ways. It seems like there's so many positive use cases for it and so many potential negative use cases for it. It's one of those things where it's very much a tool of whoever's using it.
Yeah, and you have to be aware of that and what the capabilities are. I actually tested one of the engines. I told it to write me a Django computer app and told it what the parameters of it were. And within a few minutes, it had written the whole thing, and it would have taken me over 2 days to write it, and there would have had errors in mine, and that one worked perfectly. So when you identify the strengths of AI, use them to your advantage.
If you're just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano. We're talking with John Harvey. He's the creator of the app Bloodhound. Let's talk about Bloodhound. Bloodhound is being used by the Memphis Police Department. What exactly does it do? How does it improve officer safety and investigations?
It's a multifaceted app. It began, I was looking for some property out here in Utah where I live now. And there's an app called Trulia that lets you use your phone, and you can drive through a neighborhood, and you turn your location services on, and it keeps up with where you are. And you'll see an icon on each of the houses that are for sale around you. And I remember I told my wife, I said, wouldn't that be cool if I could write something that cops could use, that as they drove through a neighborhood, there would be an icon on each house that they could click on, and it would tell them who had the utilities there, who's had motor vehicles there, any arrests that had been there, if there were warrants, gangbangers, sex offenders, all that kind of data. Well, that's what we have now. And actually, as the officer drives through, there are different colored icons. If there's a blue dot on a house, that means there's just information there. There's no threat level that is known. It could be just the utility information, maybe voter information as to who's registered there to vote, maybe that motor vehicle record stuff. If there's an orange icon there, that tells you there's been some interaction with law enforcement. So it's really an officer safety tool as well as investigative tool. If you see a red dot, that tells you that there's been an arrest there. There might be a warrant, might be a sex offender living there, maybe somebody on parole or probation. If you see a red lightning bolt, that means there's been a lot of stuff going on there. It's kind of like danger, Will Robinson. So you pay particular attention to that particular address.
You know, John, there have been a lot of concerns about law enforcement overreach with technology. How does your app, Bloodhound, balance effectiveness, and it sounds like it's quite effective, with things like privacy and civil liberties?
Yeah, you have no right to privacy on license plates. You know, the state produces them. You have to pay to get them put on your car. And it's the officer's job to make sure that they're up to date. Well, that's what cops have always done. And the deal is my Bloodhound simply does it in volume and with speed. But it also, I have over 300 million addresses in 38 states in the United States, but it's based on public data that comes from a 911 consortium. So that's why I can put a pin on every house in New York or in Tennessee or in Utah, because those states participate in that.
We hear a lot about police departments being overwhelmed with data, and at times they struggle to make sense of all that data. How does your technology help solve that?
It's not a problem for me. I understand data. We have algorithms that connect the dots for you. I was talking to somebody that asked about one of the features that we have. If an officer makes an arrest, they take the person and take them to jail. Well, when that person gets released on bond, or if they let them go on their own recognizance, which unfortunately they do too much, the officer will get an email or a text message letting him know that that person has been released. Anytime in the process, if they have another court appearance, if a warrant gets issued on that person, the officer who has previously arrested him will get notification, because he'll know more about this guy. Maybe he's a car thief. And so when the officer finds out he's out of jail, he's going to go right back. He's got to pay an attorney, so he's got to go steal something. So the officer will know he's back out and he's up to no good.
The fascinating stuff, John. And by the way, if people are interested in learning more about what you're doing, or maybe even utilizing the Bloodhound app, what's the best way for them to do that?
I can go to uscrimecenters.com, and there's actually a link there. They can go in and see the videos that we have produced on how the Bloodhound operates.
Definitely.
I wanted to say something to you about your special election.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I was involved in a special election in Memphis, Tennessee, when I had a friend. One of the state senators had gotten to take a little vacation to the state pen because the FBI caught him taking money under the table, actually filmed it, and his sister decided to run for that in a special election. Well, my buddy ran, and I was on my way to Colorado on an elk hunt. He called me up and he said, "Dude, you ain't gonna believe it. I lost by 13 votes. I said, "Do not concede. When I get home, I'll take a look at it." Long story short, 35 people got arrested after I found that we had 3 people who were dead that voted in that election. And actually, the senator that allegedly won that race got removed from the Senate. And there were a world of changes that happened there. But when you're running in a special election, your number one thing that you have to do is get your vote out.
Yeah, I'm going through that exactly now, John. So since you brought up election irregularities, your work has been recognized for identifying election irregularities.
Yeah, I'm actually in a book called Who's Counting?
Right. No, I know that. So how does data mining play a role in election security?
Well, when I was looking for people, I was trying to match them up, the people who were registered to vote with addresses. And I found there were 3 addresses that I could not get to connect. And so I grabbed my son. I said, "Come with me. We're going to go out here and look at each of these 3 sites." The first one I pulled up to was a vacant lot. And so I knew I had it. And so I called a buddy of mine who was a reporter with the Memphis paper, and he went off the charts. He wound up making a national news with it because he knew the guy who was registered at that address had died 6 months before. He was a local character. So that's how, if you have to go back through and make sure that everything matches up. I found people who didn't live in the district that voted, people who said they lived at certain locations, but it was actually businesses, people from other counties that came in, people who were felons who were voting. And so I was actually off with back surgery at that time, so I had nothing else to do. And I had a computer lab with about 6 servers sitting in it, churning all day.
Let me end with this on the election front, John. Given today's political climate, are you concerned that election security has become too politicized for real solutions to take hold? It seems like, after 2004, when Democrats would raise concerns about things like election rigging, almost all their concerns were dismissed as just partisanship. In the aftermath of 2020, it was Republicans who would raise concerns about things like election election rigging, and all those concerns were similarly dismissed as just blatant partisanship. Do you think that the current political climate makes it very difficult for people to look at issues like election security with the sane and sober viewpoint that they need to?
You know, the politics being what they are, there's that problem, but I'm encouraged that Musk is up there because he gets it. What we need is a national voter database. So you only have one record per person, makes it per live person. And that could be much more easily administered if you had that single database that had all of the states included in that. And I think I heard Musk talking about something like that.
Yeah. No, that's true. John Harvey, creator of the Bloodhound app, enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate it very much.
Frank, I just wanted to say live long and prosper.
Peace and long life, my friend. Thank you. I'll see you in the 23rd century or maybe the 24th.
Okay.
Thank you, John Harvey.